Welcome to 1,000 Words, a podcast that paints a picture about an artist's creative process. This is a lens to focus on the unique perspective of a specific artist, hopefully drawing insight into inspiration as we brush up on how imagination provides a groundwork for artistic exploration. We're excited to continue that journey today with our guest, Vasilisa Kiselevich. Yeah? All right. And then we're going to start with your introduction. It starts with a poem from Alexandr Pushkin. Everything is momentary. Everything will pass. What will pass will be dear. And it is also, you wrote it in Russian. Would you mind saying the Russian part for me?
Все мгновенно, все пройдет. Что пройдет, то будет мило.
And then you started your...
And that's Alexandr Pushkin.
Yeah. And then you started your biography. It will pass, but we hope that the photos will remain. We hope that the images will help us halt this beautiful moment. And it is not just a Faustian fleeting moment of personal life. Now it is a fleeing moment for the whole humanity, the whole world. Vasilisa's landscape and wildlife photography is her contribution to documenting nature on the brink of ecological crisis due to climate change and to progressive damage inflicted by human activity. For her, it is also a way of studying nature. For the last 7 years, she has been documenting in images and notes life of a swan family. She has also observed and photographed nightlife of beavers for a couple of years. Macro photography lets her into the invisible world of butterflies and flowers. She did not know that butterflies had two proboscises. When they were just born until she saw it in her photos. Finally, photography is a way of immersing herself in nature. It is a way of being in it and being a part of it. It is her therapy, which is why she calls it nature sessions. Our time is a fleeting moment for society as well. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have been working on Parallel Worlds project. She has been working on the Parallel Worlds project. While documenting nature in the national parks in Canada and Alaska and in Buchanan, Michigan, she also documented the tectonic movements of the social landscape in Chicago. Pandemic, Black Lives Matter, 2020 election, and recently the response to the war in Ukraine. The latter gives her photography a new purpose. Working on her Facebook page, Stand With Ukraine Chicago, helps her live through this wartime nightmare and she hopes it also helps others too. The photos she is taking at Ukrainian rallies and events are sharing a way of her sharing support, pain, and hope. Hope that Ukraine will win, and in doing so, will rid the world of Putin's regime. Her images promote awareness about the war. They're exhibited in the South Bend Museum of Art and in the Buchanan Art Center. She is also fortunate to be able to share the world of photography with her talented students. Just recently, a student's wife told her, "Thank you for giving photography to my husband. Now it is all of his life." The student himself said that after taking her classes, he became addicted to photography and sees everything as if it were a photo. I want you to read this part. It's in French, and I don't want to attempt to butcher it, so...
Il faut être toujours ivre pour ne pas sentir l'horrible fardeau de temps qui vous enivre. I'm sorry. Il faut être toujours ivre pour ne pas sentir l'horrible fardeau de temps qui brise vos épaules et vous marche vers la terre. Il faut vous enivrer sans trêve. Mais de quoi? De vin, de poésie, de vertu, à votre guise. Mais enivrez-vous. Charles Baudelaire.
You have to be always drunk in order not to feel the horrible burden of time which breaks your shoulders and bends you to the ground. You have to get drunk all the time. But with what? With wine, poetry, or virtue, as you wish. But get drunk with wine, poetry, or virtue, or with photography. Vasilisa would add. For her, photography is a way of life, a way of perceiving, and a way of seeing things. It's also a way of expression. Often, pairs her poems with photography and calls them photo poems. Photography is like poetry. It distills the essence. That's why her studio is named The Essence of Light Photography. I'm going to end with your... I'm not going to end this podcast. We're just starting the podcast, but I want you to say your poem.
Art. We cannot halt a fleeting moment, but we can capture it as light, express its essence in a sonnet, or write the fugue to voice its flight.
Vasilisa, thank you so much for joining us today. First off, I mean, you're doing so many things, but I think a lot of it, the essence of photography, the essence of what you're doing can get captured in the photo that you brought today. Can you explain a little bit about the photo and the work that you do?
So you wanted me to bring a photo that encompasses all of my photography, but that's impossible because I'm doing so many different things. So I just brought the most recent one. This one was taken on Memorial Day, and fittingly, it's a fight of swans, 3 swans. It brings together my project. It reminds of my project about parallel worlds, the nature and the humans. It reminds, the swan fight reminds me of the human fight that we're having in Ukraine right now. The 2 swans are fighting, and the third one is looking right near them, and he's looking, actually it's she, but thinking to help or not to help.
Yeah.
And it totally reminds me of the US and Ukraine, Russia fighting Ukraine, and U.S. thinking to help or not to help.
And that is on a national level. We were wondering if we should bring military, but you're going to Chicago where there is protests, where there is people standing up. And tell me a little bit about documenting those rallies.
I started documenting them pretty much in February, when the war, as soon as the war started. And in the beginning, there were huge rallies. There were thousands of people, and it was more like an anti-war protest. But I also tried, I started my page, Stand With Ukraine Chicago on Facebook, where I not only post the photos, but the events, because in the beginning I couldn't find the events and nobody knew the events. I called my Ukrainian friends and asked them, do you know where to go or who is going? Nobody knew. And somehow yet people got out, although some people missed it. And they wrote to my page, well, will you let us know what's next? So I started putting the information that I could find about the future events. And now the consulate sends me, Ukrainian consulate sends me the list of events. So it's a lot easier now. But now also, unfortunately, the turnout is a lot smaller. And I'm very afraid that people are going to become complacent and become used to it. And they will feel like, well, that's their job to die there. That's their job to have their cities ruined. That's just how it goes. The same thing like we got used to shootings, the school shootings. Well, it's just not a school shooting. Well, you were used to it. So we're not going to be able to do anything about it. So I'm afraid that will happen, and trying to prevent it with my images and trying to reach American public and hopefully our politicians also, that they keep supporting Ukraine.
And then when you're talking about people getting complacent, how is apathy kind of lead towards the destruction of stuff that we hold dear?
Well, we just let it happen then. We just let it happen, but by not taking any steps to prevent it. The same thing like with gun violence.
And then for you, why is it so important? As you are, as you mentioned in your biography, photography allows you to capture a moment. What moment are we in right now? And how can we proceed in a way that's helpful? How could we possibly proceed in a way that is unhelpful?
You mean in respect of Ukraine?
Yes, with respect to some of the protests that you were documenting.
Well, the unhelpful is waiting with help. If we helped earlier, would have been made a lot bigger difference than it is doing now. But better later than never.
Your work, Parallel Worlds. Tell me a little bit about. I mean, this protest is the latest moment and the latest thing that you're capturing. But Parallel Worlds, you've been interested in nature for quite a long time. Tell me a little bit about where that interest in nature started and how it developed.
Well, I think just from my childhood, really. And we traveled a lot in Russia, and I traveled in the mountains and different cities and different forests. Took canoe trips, like month-long canoe trips there. So that's probably where it started from my parents. They used to go to the mountains without a tent, and they would go for like a few weeks, and it would rain every day. But they would figure, well, we don't need a tent because it's too heavy to carry. So, and they would cross the rivers, mountain rivers with nothing. So, and just having the backpacks on their backs. So, and no, even some places they went, there were not even any maps to it, because it would be like in the thought as a military area or something. So some places didn't even have maps. So,
oh wow! So
I mean that you could purchase at least.
Yeah. So you were just kind of they were just walking around, exploring and enjoying.
They went to the libraries and used the maps in the libraries and redraw the maps for themselves.
Really?
Yes.
What are some of the places that you like to explore in Buchanan, in Chicago? Where are the places that you like to explore?
Well, in Chicago, unfortunately, the only nature, as far as I'm concerned, is the lake.
Yeah.
There's Botanic Garden, but it's not quite wildlife, but kind of nature. But I lately I was traveling to Alaska and Canada.
Oh wow!
In a truck camper.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some national parks too. And actually, I've been going to national parks since I came to the US. So.
And then you said in your biography also that you like swans, and then you also do beavers at night. What draws you to those animals in particular?
Well, it's just the swans are so beautiful and so gracious and graceful, and they have a very structured family life, and they're true to each other. The spouses, they stay together for the whole life, and they live like 30-some years. This was an interesting project because originally there was just one family, a swan family, and then another came to and usually one swan family has its own lake. The lake belongs to this family. So, and all of a sudden, the intruders started coming to that lake. First, the swan, and the lake is it's Crescent Lake. It has this south side and a north side, and the original swans were on the south side, so I called them Southerners. And then intruders were they finally settled on the north side, and I called them Northerners. So the Southerners were older and more mature, and you can see it on that black bulge in front, on top of their nose, their noses. The male, when you're looking meaning the males. The females don't have it. So they were... the Southerners chased away the Northerners first, and they destroyed their nest. They by not letting her, they chased just the day when I calculated when the babies were supposed to be born, the cygnets. The Northerners destroyed their nest, and later they chased her away from the nest and didn't let her come back. So the eggs got cold and useless. So, and then the next day they chased them both away from the lake. And later, the next year, the Northerners came back, and there were big fights between them, and somehow this time the Northerners managed to hold on and settle there on the northern part. And it's interesting dynamics because this year the Northerners got more mature, and like you see, those bulges are similar on both of the. Before, the Northerner has smaller bulge than the Southerner. Now they're the same. So he got more mature, and now you can see the Northerner is beating the Southerner. And it's also interesting how they're they have different personalities or different way of doing things. Like the Northern male, the female helps him. And the Southerners always by himself, always. So, and the rest of his family is grazing somewhere far away while he's fighting. And in this case, he's being beaten up. So this is how it's interesting to observe their dynamics. And I documented how their days goes from the morning to the evening, how they sit on the eggs, how they build the nest. Even I have photos of the nest, and she sits in the nest in the snow a couple of years ago, and how she also documented how he replaces her at the nest so she can go and graze, eat a little bit, and how they both build the nest, how they look for different places for their nests. Also, how they build more than one nest. The first nest is just to for the first week, and then they move to another one, and then another one. So just observing them and also reading about them on the internet along with it, that makes a very interesting project.
And then the theme of family, can you tell me a little bit about your own family and growing up?
Well, I grew up in Moscow with my parents. My father is a nuclear physicist, and my mom was teaching math at the university. So,
tell me a little bit about the changes that happened throughout your life, not just from family, but the country in general. How things progressed. What brought you to the United States?
There have been so many changes, particularly with the country. It is going all the way back now before I left. So I left, I went, I was in the medical school before I left to the US. This medical school experience was very dramatic compared to what I saw here. And that's why I decided to go here, because over there we had to go from one department to another. It's not you had to use public transportation to get from one department to another instead of your lunch or anything. Our professors were sadists, and no, literally, and they bragged that the director of the medical school bragged that, 70% of our students graduate, by the time they graduate, they're disabled.
Oh, geez.
That's one thing to brag, right?
Wow.
So that's probably close because they made our life so bad, and rotten cadavers and everything, and just everything was horrible. And anyways, once I came to the US, I was able the first time to I was able to see how medical school here goes, and I was so excited about it. So I wanted to go to medical school here, and I had a chance to come here in 1991, right before couple months before the Soviet Union fell apart.
Oh wow!
Right after the coup, and once. So now, while I was here, the Soviet Union tried to become Russia in different countries, including Ukraine, and Russia was trying to. Originally, it was trying to get somewhere to more becoming a more democratic state, but it didn't work, and now it's going all the way back to where it was pretty much during Stalin's time.
And then growing up in Moscow, you moved here right when it actually fell, but what was the atmosphere like in Moscow leading up to those days?
It was very scary and very depressing. We kept thinking that it would be like during the Cultural Revolution, that they would let us speak freely, and then they'll put us in prison for doing that.
Oh, wow.
So we didn't know how it would work, and we thought our phones were tapped, and a lot of them were. So we didn't know. In the meantime, we didn't have anything in the stores. Right the day before I left Russia, I stayed in line for 6 hours to get sugar. I stayed 3 hours and my mom stayed 3 hours. And we had a ration ticket just to get a kilogram of sugar. So the same thing was with soap and just pretty much anything. And the shelves were empty. So naturally, it was all very depressing, and it stayed. After I left, it stayed pretty. Russia was going through a hard time for a while, for a few years after that. But probably, I would think I left at the worst time.
Oh wow! And then was it a guarded fact that anyone? For you guys, you're having ration tickets. You're waiting 6 hours for sugar, but leadership in that country was not doing that at the time. Were you aware that they were able to have the goods and services they needed?
Oh, no, the leadership had it, naturally. But it's always like that. Leadership always has that.
And then tell me about, so you come here, you're working in medical school.
Well, I wasn't here in medical school because, I didn't finish it there. And I did, over there, you have to go from, we go from high school to medical school. But in high school, we study in organic chemistry, whatever you study in medical in the beginning, and in college here. So instead, we go from high school to medical school. And in the first year, we catch up with also what you would be studying in college and some things. And some things would be already from medical school. So I didn't finish it, so I had to go to college here. And I finished college in Duluth, at the University of Minnesota, Duluth. And then I moved to Chicago for graduate school in microbiology and immunology because I wasn't able to get student loan for because I didn't have a green card, so I wasn't able to get student loan for my medical school. Although I did get, pass the test and everything, but I couldn't get a loan. So I figured to do graduate school in microbiology and immunology instead, but it turned out just the lab wasn't for me, and I had health issues, and I had to quit right away. So I didn't finish that either. So, and then I was a Russian and French interpreter for several years. Yeah. And so now I'm doing photography.
And so, tell me a little bit about during that time. I mean, you're moving from a new country. You're trying to figure out the schooling system. You're trying to figure out all these things. Did photography take a back seat at that time, or were you always able to still pursue it?
I did photography since the last century. Horrible to say, but it was black and white, and we developed and printed our own photos. Because the color film wasn't very good in Russia. So we did black and white and developed it ourselves. So when I came here, naturally I didn't have the facilities or anything, and I just had a simple camera, if anything, in the beginning, because actually I came to this country with $50 and no work permit, so I couldn't afford too much.
Yeah. And then having those struggles, obviously that $50 needs to be spread towards everything else, and photography would take a little bit of a back seat on that.
Did.
So, yeah. But what was that like to lose a creative outlet like that?
Well, I was basically concentrating on getting into medical school, getting all A's, getting into graduate school. And staying in touch with my family in Russia, which was not, I was writing really long letters, and I was only able to send them when somebody went there, because if you send them by mail, it would never get there.
Oh, okay.
So I kept writing, and then whenever I had a chance, I would send it. It was the people who went there.
Yeah. So you had did you have a network of people that were commuting back and forth from Russia that you were able to send these letters? Or how often would you be able
just friends of friends. So, they usually let each other know, somebody so-and-so goes, so they can.
And everybody would send a letter with them?
Whoever knows, yeah.
Yeah, whoever knows. Oh, yes. Okay. And then tell me a little bit about, coming from Moscow and going to Duluth. How is that? What was the biggest difference you noticed right away? And
well, the difference was the society and the country. Not so much the nature was not that different, really.
Oh, okay. And then during that time, obviously, you're not able to take as many photographs, but were you still seeing the world in pictures? Were you still seeing the essence of photography?
I got more into photography later. So at that time, no, I was more of a medical student.
Okay. And then
working in the lab and things like that.
Oh, okay. So you're not out exploring as much. You're more specific to the lab.
I just didn't have a chance. Mm-hmm. I didn't have money. I didn't have. I've stayed at people's basements and attics and did household and housekeeping and stuff so that they could host me, because I didn't have money. Mm-hmm. And I would walk to the university an hour each way, and was on the highway in the winter. And then once I came to Chicago, it would be on biking on the snow on the road with the trucks. So I was just basically surviving.
Yeah. How did you get into when you're talking about ecological collapses, how did you get into environmental justice? How did you get into that?
It just always concerned me, and I probably got it from my father.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What was he into? How did he get you?
Well, he just always was concerned about it. Back in Russia, in the last century, he was always concerned about the ecological crisis, the looming ecological crisis.
And then growing up with things like Chernobyl happening and stuff like that, how did that affect him? How did that affect you?
It didn't affect him so much because we were right by Chernobyl when it happened.
Oh,
because we went to Ukraine, to Kiev, to see our friends. It was May holidays. So we took those holidays to use the holidays to go to visit our friends in Kiev. And right when Chernobyl happened, we were even closer than Kiev to Chernobyl. And my father took it rather lightly. He said, well, I get a lot more radiation at work than here. But naturally, we still understood that it was, a big disaster, although nobody said it. The media and the radio, television, said everything is fine. They made children from even middle and grade school children go to a parade, and the radiation is the worst for the youngest.
Yeah,
and they had them go to a parade. Because for the May holidays, and they kept saying everything is fine. But we remember they said Kiev есть был и будет советским. Kiev was and will be Soviet. They were saying it when the Germans were entering it already. So we knew that. So we figured, we needed to listen to different source of information, which was Voice of America. At night we were trying to catch it with the radio, and the Russians Soviets at that time were blocking it. So they had a lot of noise online. Mm-hmm. They had special blocking stations to block those wavelengths with noise. But the English part we could hear, so they didn't bother to block the English part so much, so we still could hear the English part. And, I studied English in school, so it was a little better than nothing at the time.
And then you said your dad was in nuclear fission?
And he's a nuclear physicist. Mm-hmm. And and he worked in CERN, and he worked in Fermilab here, and he worked in Virginia and Jefferson Lab.
So did he kind of have a little understanding of how large the situation was?
Oh yes, he studies it, and he studied it a lot, and he read a lot about it. I can, but I have a story from when I was working as an interpreter. I was also working as a medical assistant at the same time I was doing both interpretation and medical stuff for a retina specialist. And we had a lot of elderly patients. And one patient told me a story that he was from Kiev too. He said that he had a friend who was a very handsome young guy, and he was in love with a young lady. But he couldn't marry her because he didn't have money. And then they told him that there's a job for you and you can make a lot of money. So he took it. And the job was to fix the results of the Chernobyl explosion.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't tell people how dangerous it is. They didn't do any they didn't have any OSHA, whatever,
or Geiger
any kind of
or anything.
rules, nothing. Yeah. They didn't tell them. I don't even think they told them how bad it was. Even my father said that at his work at the reactor as a nuclear physicist, his science lab, they were prohibited to say radiation illness. It was professional illness, professional disease. You could not say radiation. Mm-hmm. So the same thing. They didn't say anything to those who worked there on Chernobyl relief. And that handsome, wonderful young guy who got a lot of money from, a lot by their standards, for that work that he did there. But then he lost his vision, then he lost his hearing, and then he slowly died. Oh, he got the money. He was able to get whatever he wanted and marry, but then he kind of burned slowly within the next few months.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you guys had gone there for vacation in Kyiv.
Yes, and then back we came. It was the same thing. Evacuation. We had the tickets on the train. Maybe we were able to get them. I don't remember. So my friend's daughter came with us. She and I, we went on the train, while my parents went back by car as they came with our friend. So when the friend's daughter Natasha, she stayed with us and went in Moscow and went to my high school for a year.
Oh, wow. So you have connections in Ukraine. What was that? What were your summers like on there? Paint us a picture of what it's like to go on vacation in that.
Actually, I did go on vacation pretty much every summer when I was little, until I was 6 years old, because my mom always took me there for the Black Sea, and that's where we met those friends. It's a lot, and a lot of Russians actually spend a lot of their summers in Ukraine. So it's really hard, for them to separate.
What are some of your memories of that, going to the Black Sea? What I've never been there, so describe it.
It's nothing like here, it was just the beaches and little houses around, and we just my parents and Natasha's parents rented a room in one of those houses.
Yeah. To have fond memories of Ukraine, what is it like now with what's happening?
It's just unbelievable. It was a shock, and it's just a nightmare. And I'm sure it was a shock for everybody. Mm-hmm. But somehow, like I said, I'm afraid people are, they cannot stay shocked for too long, and now they've forgetting about it, starting to relax and forget about it, while everything is still going on there.
Since Crimea, was it always a looming threat that this could happen? And did you think that it ever would happen?
I don't think anybody thought it would ever happen to that extent. Well, when they thought that they might get, try to, get more a little bit around Crimea, but not like this. No, nobody expected it. Even my friends in Kyiv, I told them, even after the war started, I said, you have to run. And they said, well, but I want to, I'm still thinking I want to hold the Easter party for my friends.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, no, you have to run.
Yeah.
Don't risk it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What is the...
And I'm glad she's in Germany now.
She's in Germany now?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Natasha, she lives in Germany, so she had somewhere to go to.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So what was... is that the same Natasha that you grew up with?
Yes. No, well, the lady I was talking was her mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Natasha lives in Germany now already. I mean, she lived in Germany for years already by now.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. So you remain friends?
Oh, yeah.
Even from those times? Yeah. And then...
Natasha they both visited us in Chicago too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then tell me a little bit about, as a photographer, I think it's the most unique because it's a full documentary. A lot of times, if you're painting something, you're interpreting it. When you're taking photography, you're documenting it. What is that process like? How do you know how to frame the photo to capture the story that you're looking for?
I think it comes with experience. A lot of the time, you don't have any time to think about it. Like in the protests, you have to run backwards and amidst all these crowds and choose just the moment that you need. Like Henri Cartier-Bresson said, the decisive moment. You kind of train yourself as a photographer to see that decisive moment that you don't have to think, because if you think, you miss it.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your process so it is in a moment, but like on a given rally, How many photos are you taking? How many of them are you actually saving from there when you dwindle it down to like this got what I need?
Depends. It's about 500. Sometimes depends how big a rally. Like in the beginning, the first Ukrainian rally that I went to, one part was in Ukrainian village, and then the other part was downtown. So I had more than 1,000 photos. But I post. I don't naturally edit all of them, but I choose the ones I like, and I post them on Facebook, and you can see them. So it's Stand with Ukraine Chicago and Chicago 2020 election protests, two sites.
And then one of the things that's interesting about this war, I mean, it's happened in a lot. There's always propaganda and stuff like that, but this is an information war too. So as a photographer, how are you being able to provide the information that a lot of people don't get?
Well, I hope people in Russia can see it, those who have hopefully my friends, Facebook is prohibited in Russia now, but you can access it through VPN. And they keep closing more and more VPNs, but people keep finding ways around it. So they can see it, and it also shares the information for American public because they have slogans there, and they have they even carry pictures with photos from Ukraine. So it spreads the information amidst Americans too.
Having a Russian nationality, how were you originally perceived in these Ukrainian protests, and how has that evolved or changed over time?
Yes, it's an interesting question. The first time when the first protest, the one in Ukrainian village in downtown in February, it was first for me because I was in Michigan. It started. I mean, the second after it started. Somebody asked me if. What nationality I was, or what I was. I said I was Russian, and they kind of shrunk and shrugged and kind of closed themselves, and I don't blame them. Naturally, if you say you're Russian and Russians are attacking your country and destroying your cities, what else? But after a while, that I've been to, I try to go to every rally I can, and I have my page too. People change. I asked them if they ask me what language I'm speaking, or where I'm from. I said, don't even ask it. If they're asking me where I'm from, I said, don't even ask. It's too disgusting. And they say, well, we understand. That's the standard now. We understand, and so it has been a change.
It's in your biography you wrote about ending Putin's regime. How is he not representative of the true nature and your experience being Russian people in general? How's the society different than the regime?
He does not represent Russia the same thing as Hitler doesn't represent Germany, and I'm afraid that some people are doing it, going overboard, wanting to prohibit Chekhov or plays. I've heard the calls at the rallies to prohibit Chekhov plays in Northwestern, but Russian. Literature and Russian intellectuals, they were always against regime, even before the Soviet Union, against the Russian regime, against all the stupidity and all the cruelty of the society and the government. You can't, you have to differentiate between the culture and the politics. Putin is the same. Like I said, no, it's the same thing. Like Hitler doesn't represent German culture. He doesn't represent Germany. It's a horrible abnormality, I think.
Where do you hope we could go from? I mean, now he was, I think, just recently diagnosed with cancer, a very fast-spreading one. How do you hope that we could start correcting the future?
The only way to correct, I think, even if Putin dies, it's not going to help anything because he has all these people around him already ready to take it from him and to keep carrying it on. The one really good way to do it now is to help Ukraine win the war. Mm-hmm. That, in my view, it's the only way for us to get rid of Putin's regime. And the world needs to get rid of Putin's regime, not just not because it's American dominance, like some people at the abortion rallies I talked to, they were like, oh, but this is going to be like one country, just the US wants to dominate instead of Russia. No, this is not just because about US and Russia. This is about Russia and the whole world, and the world is not like it used to be, where every country can just function by itself. Every car is made, everything is made. One part is made in one country, the other part is made in the other country, then the motor is put together in the third country, then it's shipped to the fourth country, something else is there. The world is all interconnected now, and it has to be... you cannot have a holy hand like Russia, in the midst of this whole connection. Like my father says, it's like in a communal apartment where they lived, back in the middle of the last century. So that's, where people would share the kitchen and the bathroom, and there would be like 3-4 families living in the same apartment. So if you don't, everybody has to keep up the kitchen and everything, and the fridge, and everybody has to have rules. Like, because, for instance, like if we'll have rules and we'll keep our nature safe, and Russia goes and dumps some radioactive substances in the rivers that go in the ocean and pollute the whole world. Or like the same thing, Chernobyl, it polluted the other countries. We only found it out because, they had to admit that it happened only because it went to Norway or somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, nobody would have known, but it spreads around. So everything, nowadays, the world is with nuclear powers and everything, and so many people too. The world is a lot smaller place and is a lot more interconnected. So we just all have to adhere to some rules, and Russia doesn't. And you see, it doesn't. And so it's just impossible to survive as a planet having somebody like that.
The protests that you went to, or the rallies that you've gone to for Ukraine, Stand with Ukraine, you've also done previous rallies as well. So you've done 2020 election, you did BLM, you're doing abortion
Women's March.
Women's March. Tell me a little bit about those. What got you interested in those social justice spheres?
Well, I was very passionate about social justice all my life. Naturally, when Trump came to power, I was devastated. And it was a way for me also to make myself feel better. The same thing, like when I go to Ukrainian rallies, it makes us feel better. It gives us hope. We can share hope too. And when the same thing, you go to rallies also to share outrage, to share hope. And for me as a photographer, above all, it's to document things. And it has been a lot to document lately.
Yeah. Tell me about the first rallies you went to and what you gained from them so that, now you're becoming better and better, more expert.
Well, first rallies, anti-war rallies for Iraq war. The war in Iraq.
Yeah.
Back then, I have a lot better cameras now and a lot more experience.
Yeah.
At the first rallies, I was more of a participant, although I did take photos. But then, I'm concentrating more on photography. But in the anti-war rallies for Iraq war, I had slogans and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As an artist, being able to document these rallies, these real-life events that are happening, that are hopefully trying to work towards a change. For younger artists, what advice do you give to them who are trying to go out and do these things?
Oh my God. Well, it's I think it's like as a photographer.
Yeah.
You pretty much have to be just practice and experiment and develop your skills all the time, because at the rallies there's no time to go figure better frame, better composition, better light. You have to catch that light, that expression on a person's face, there's a lot more in the rally than in the just say still photo, like landscape or something. Because particularly if it's a march, they're moving. So when you want to show the side of the crowd, if there's a big crowd turnout, so you have to find some spot to climb on. So you have to kind of think where you can climb on and run real fast ahead and climb on something to take the pictures from above to show the size of the crowd. But then also just crowds, it's not so interesting because it's just only crowds by themselves. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to concentrate on people's emotions, and that's what really expresses the whole cause of the rally. So you have to also catch the moments for the with people's emotions, and particularly better yet if they coincide with a slogan that you like, or that is not necessarily that you like, but it might be representative of the movement or of the particular march. I also, since it's in Chicago, I'm photographing marches in Chicago. I try to have a landmark in my photos. Mm-hmm. So it's my goal is to get the emotions, the slogans, and the landmarks
a
all
sense
in
of
one.
Place.
All
Yeah.
in one.
Oh, okay.
And better yet, if it all happens in front, somewhere above a big crowd, but that's almost impossible.
Yeah. When you are doing these social justice issues, do you ever get concerned about your own safety?
I did. My parents, particularly my mom, was very upset every time I went to Black Lives Matters protests or election protests, particularly at night. I remember those nights when the city is awash in blue light from police cars. It was literally awash in the blue light from police cars, and the streets are empty except for when you're returning going from to the L or to your car. Actually, it was during pandemic, so I just was returning to the car because you couldn't take the L. It was really eerie, but I'm okay. It worked out.
So you don't get For those moments when it is a little bit scary, why is your interest in documenting social justice issues overwork your idea of personal safety? Because a lot of times that's a hard thing to do. We as natural beings have an idea to protect ourselves. But why is the social justice bigger than that?
I don't know. I guess I get so concentrated on my photography, and the rest doesn't matter for me so much. And that's what my parents are also worried about.
What are your hopes as we head into the future?
Like I said, I hope Ukraine wins, and we help Ukraine win. And this is the only way to that's one thing we wanted for Ukraine, and we also wanted for the world to get rid of Putin's regime.
As a professor, as a person who works at the Buchanan Art Center, what is the best lesson that you could impart to people who are coming to learn from you?
I don't know if there's one particular lesson, but like I said, photography is addictive, and what I can do, I can get these people addicted.
What is your advice then that you teach any student that comes to you?
One that fits all.
Not just any advice that you
I have a lot of it.
Let's hear some of your advice.
I mean, as far as photography?
Yeah.
Well, I want them to think about why they're taking the photo. Because a lot of the time I see photos that I don't know why people even took them. But actually, I have a lot of advice, because I came from the country of advice. The Soviet Union, Soviet is Soviet. Советский Союз. Советский comes from Soviet. So Soviet means advice. So there's a joke that I'm from a country of advice. Советский Союз, right?
Yeah.
So I like to give advice. Too much.
Not too much. This is amazing. So let's hear some of those life lessons or those artistic lessons. That's what I'd want to end on. To give us a piece of advice as we move forward.
Oh my God, this is hard. Is it advice for photographers or advice for people in general?
Okay, so for anybody taking your class, how do you start off your class? What is the first thing you want people to know about photography? Well, like I said, that it's a way of life. It's a way of vision. It will really complement your life, and it will become your life. That's amazing. And with that advice, you are at the Buchanan Art Center. If people want to come take lessons from you, get that customized advice, they're more than welcome to do that. But we're going to end on that note. Thank you for listening to 1,000 Words. I'd like to thank our guest, Vasilisa. Yes? Got it? All right. For her time, effort, and insight. This episode was recorded at Wolf Den Studios in South Bend. Our audio engineer is Dustin Taberski. We hope you enjoyed this journey of inspiration, imagination, and exploration. I'm Ronnie Das, reminding you to have fun, be creative, and enjoy a wonderful day.